ahead and report out on our closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In closed session, the City Council was briefed on item number 1 and on item number 2, and no reportable action was, or I'm sorry, items A and B, and no reportable action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to go ahead and adjourn our special meeting. Now I would like to call to order our meeting for the Temple City City Council for July 2nd, 2019. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mann?
Here.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Here.
Councilmember Yu?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Here.
Mayor Fish?
Here. Okay, we're going to start off, first of all, with Mr. Jerry Jambazian, who is our owner of Wonder Cleaners, who will be doing our invocation. Wonder Cleaners and Draperies has been doing business in the city for 61 years and is located at 9136 Las Tunas Drive. I'm going to ask everyone to stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be done by Boy Scout Troop 174. Scouts presenting the flag will be Jordan Mendoza, Casey Kim, and Nicholas Calisto. Thank you.
Please join with me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight to ask your blessing for tonight's council meeting. Your word tells us to pray for those in authority over us. It is no accident that you have placed these 5 men and women on the dais before us tonight. We have learned that the best form of government is at the local level. I pray that you would give them wisdom in the decisions that they will be making tonight for our benefit and our good. I also pray for support staff such as our city manager, city attorney, city clerk, and all the staff that give input to their decision-making process. As we celebrate Independence Day on Thursday, let us not forget the freedoms we enjoy and the sacrifices made for us. We remember all that protect and serve us, including our sheriffs, fire department, and the men and women in our armed forces who ensure our freedom. We pray for safety and journey's mercies as our Brighter Side singers return from New Zealand and the Hawkesbury, Australia on Thursday. And Lord, we thank you as we honor the 3+ decades of service of Kathy Burrows as the Director of Parks and Recreation. Because of her dedication, it can truly be said of Temple City, parks make life better. Father, we ask this all in your name and for your glory. Amen.
Amen.
Detail, all posts. All those not in uniform, place your right hand over your heart. Scout salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Detail, reform. Detail, about face. Detail, forward march.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we're going to start off with our ceremonial matters. We have our pet of the month. Kathy Rigney, a San Gabriel Valley Humane Society Shelter Board President, will present our pet of the
Hello,
month.
everybody. This is
Cute.
Casey Jr. Casey came to us at the end of April with a litter. Casey's the only one left.
Oh.
He did great at first, but when he went out into the regular shelter. He didn't do so well. He wants to be more around people. So we brought him back, and we fattened him up again, and he's playful, as many of you have already seen tonight. He's a really sweet little guy. He's about 3 months old now, so yeah, for those of you that know cats, this is very small for a cat. He's
It is
just a
very
petite
small.
little guy. So he is neutered already, and he's available for adoption at St. Gabriel Valley Humane Society. So come visit us down there, see Casey. And it is kitten season, so guess what? We got lots of little kitties and some wonderful adults as well. Not to mention right now a plethora of bunny rabbits. Lots and lots and lots of bunny rabbits have come in this year. So love to see you all down there, and I'm going to put in another shameless plug, October 5th. Put it on your calendars. We will be having our 95th anniversary celebration, and we will also be participating in the Bark in the Park with the Parks and Recs. So we'll see you all there as well. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now for the South Coast Air Quality Management District Air Quality Update. I'd like to introduce Michael Cacciati.
Caciotti.
What is it? What is it?
Think of chicken cacciatore, caciotti.
Okay, Governing Board President of the South Coast Air Quality Management District.
Evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Good to see you, staff. Give you a little background on the South Coast Air Quality Management District. We're the one of the largest air pollution districts, if not the largest in the nation. If you look on the center map, that shows you California. We're circled in red, but go to the top right. It's the 4 counties, LA, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange County. Look at the size, 10,000 square miles. Is all the kind of non-desert portions of those 4 counties. 17 million people, 12 million vehicles, largest port gateway in the United States. On the left, we were formed because the pollution was so bad here, as anybody knows, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was 4 separate counties, each had their own pollution control district. 1977, they brought them all together, South Coast AQMD. There's 42 monitors throughout the 4 counties. The closest here is in Pasadena by Caltech. There's one in Azusa and Pomona. If you have any questions about odors, things like that, want to get checked, we can have inspectors come out and take samples back to our laboratories in Diamond Bar, let you know within a day what it is, if it concerns Mayor. Here's a challenge all of us face with air quality and pollution. It's mostly mobile sources, top left, light-duty, medium-duty vehicles on the freeways, cargo, diesel trains, Burlington Northern, Union Pacific, all throughout our area. Also, Metrolink, which I take often, is also diesel, but we're trying to change that. Ocean-going vessels, cargo equipment, diesel, bunker fuel. But now when they dock at the ports, they electrify. So they plug into electric, no more just gas. Heavy-duty diesel vehicles, we try to convert those over. Off-road construction equipment, bottom left, manufacturing. These are #1 sources of pollution. Unfortunately, AQMD controls stationary sources, landfills, oil refineries, gas stations, spray booths, and dry cleaners. Here's a real bad thing about air pollution. It causes health impacts all of us, not only to your respiratory system, but look at your heart, your cardiovascular system, and unfortunately, the really small diesel particulate matter, that's what we're really concerned about, heavy diesel, that passes the blood-brain barrier and goes into your brain. We have a British Petroleum settlement of $50 million at AQMD. We're doing studies now with rats off the 405 by Irvine, UC Irvine, and the rats that are put near the freeway versus rats that are about 500 yards away. The ones near the freeway, there's expression of the genes in their brains similar to people that have Alzheimer's. Okay, so we know it causes possibly autism. We know asthma for sure, and now it's linked to Alzheimer's disease. So this is why pollution and reducing its impacts is very important. There's good news. There's a lot of money available. This is the settlement with VW. $500 million nearly available because they cheated on a Dieselgate scandal. There's 5 categories on the left. Zero-emission transit school buses, which a lot of cities can apply for, school districts, $130 million. Freight is mainly freight by the ports, zero-emission freight. Towards the bottom, category light-duty zero-emission vehicles, $10 million for that. There's programs. Carl Moyer is what usually you can apply for up until through June. In every budget cycle, if you have like public works vehicles, shuttles, things like that, or diesel, if you convert them over, we'll pay the difference. South Pass did it 3 or 4 years ago. We had a couple public works vehicles for the road, for sewers. They were diesel. We wanted to go to compressed natural gas. So EQMD gave us 10,000 per vehicle to reduce it from that. So that's available to cities, dump trucks, stuff like that. Prop 1 is pretty much used up now. We have a lot of incentive programs. This one on the left is for your residents or yourselves, depending on your income level. It's called Replace Your Ride, and you can get up to $9,500 to turn in a polluting vehicle, depending on your income level, to get a cleaner vehicle, whether it's hybrid, plug-in hybrid, all electric, compressed natural gas, or hydrogen fuel cell. Or you want transit passes, get that. Charging station will do that too. Just go to www in blue, Replace Your Ride. And about every month we give away about 35 to 65 vouchers from people throughout our area. Just apply. So it's exciting, a great program. We love it. On the right, school bus program. Boy, look at the bottom. They've given away $280 million in the last 18 years just to convert those. Remember when we were kids, all you saw was the black soot pulling out and you're sitting there inhaling it. Now compressed natural gas, 90% cleaner. As of last year, electric school buses. So it's exciting times now transitioning to electric, and we can give you 50,000, convert those over. This is for any of your residents that are in the audience or at home. We'll give you $500 up to $1,000, depending on your income level, to install electric charging stations at your home. Part of the Governor's Zero Emission Vehicle Program. And these are level 2 chargers. If you were to plug in a wall, that's a level 1. It takes a long time to charge. These are level 2. Goes on your wall or something on your gates. Edison also has a supplementary program that adds up to $1,000 after January 1st for charging stations. You want to thank your city for one of the first ones to try this out several years ago. We converted South Pass to all electric lawn equipment. We started with a park about twice the size of your park out here, 8 acres, 9 acres, and we just started slowly with that park, gave them 2 years to convert to electric equipment. They did, and 2 years later we put it into contract with the company. The entire city would have to be electric. So all our soccer fields, baseball fields, Little League, our library, city buildings, everything is now electric. No more gas equipment, and it's exciting. So like the cars have evolved in the last 5 or 10 years, electric cars used to only go 90 miles, now they go 300 miles, 250. Same with the equipment. When we first started, it was and I think when you tested it, very primitive. Now, we have one huge battery and a 60-inch riding lawnmower that cuts the park in like 2 hours. It flies around. So the equipment's state-of-the-art, advanced, 6 companies doing it, and there's a lot of money available right now. There's $2 million from the EPA. We'll have our staff come out again, work with your staff if they want to, and convert over. Example, bottom left, take one leaf blower. Charge for an electric leaf blower is probably close to $1,400. After we get a discount, then we'll give you $500 more. Comes out to basically $500. You never have to buy gas. And when you mix the gas, you got to mix it with oil. So it's a lot more pollution, costs a lot of money, and it operates about 1/10 the cost of a gas and pollutes 0 emissions in your parks, baseball fields, soccer fields, things like that, or your schools. We also have a program for the residents, besides commercial. If you want to bring one, I did this 10 years ago when it was, again, primitive, plastic, but it's still cut. Now they're robust electric lawnmowers. You got many, dozen choices basically. And now you can just go online anytime. And if it's a cheap model, like $250, we'll give you $150 off. As the price goes up, you get this much money off once you buy it. Cordless electric lawnmower, turn your old one in. So great year-round program. Go on our website and check that out. We also have a program if you want to get a new furnace. If you're updating your HVAC system, want to get a furnace, we'll give you $500 to get a clean, low-NOx furnace so you're not polluting the air or inside your house. We have programs at AQMD, grants programs we offer year-round. A company in your city applied, and they got $100,000, or a couple of companies, for converting heavy-duty diesel vehicles like this over to CNG or putting particulate traps on them or buying newer vehicles. Your city's applied, Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Committee, for grants. You've upgraded CNG infrastructure, 2 light-duty vehicles, probably cars out there, or little pickup trucks. So this money you can apply for anytime, all year round. It's, on your car registration, 40% of the $4 goes to the city, 30% will go to AQMD and this Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Fund, which was set up in the 90s, and then 30% will go to another program at AQMD. Now, you've got this much money in your program, so depending on the number of residents in your city, this is called AB 2766, again, passed in 1990. It gives a certain portion of your car registration fee to each city. So based on your population, you get 40% of $4, and right now you've got nearly 200,000 in there. but that money must be used to reduce mobile source pollution. Cars, trucks, shuttles, lawn equipment that's moving around is mobile. So you can use that money for anything like that. Apparently you're using, and we now lease payments on alternative fuel vehicles. You can buy alternative fuel vehicles, lease them. Whatever you do, it's just got to reduce mobile source pollution. You've got a lot of money and you use it wisely. So also finally, we have a great app. If you want to install that, got it installed a few weeks ago. And as I go to my city, as I was in Pomona last night, coming here on the bus here, the Metrolink to Pomona, I had my app on. As I go through different cities, I was going through Montebello, it tells you the level of particulate matter in the air, different things like NOx. And I said, wow, and it's changed. I said, wow, so for some reason South Pass was worse than Pomona yesterday. And so I get to your city and it tells the levels on there. So it's really neat. And then you can put another part of the app and it tells you where all the electric charging stations are in the region. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you for having me, and always willing to have you, staff, residents, any of your clubs, chambers of commerce, Rotary, Kiwanis, Boy Scouts, come up to our facility, do a tour, check our laboratories, advanced technology vehicles, our charging stations, or we'll come to you.
Thank you very much. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Couple of questions. Many of the residents in Temple City have, let me turn this on. Many of our residents in Temple City have gardeners. For example, on my street, he does probably 10 homes on the street. So if we wanted to get him to use an electric
Blower or
lawnmower and a blower, could he provide something to AQMD to show that he's not going to be a resident of Temple City, but can he do an exchange?
Yes, all commercial landscapers, gardeners can do it. What we used to do is the last one I was at was at Glendale College, where we had an exchange program. Like we used to have a lawnmower exchange program. We'd come to a city and we'd just have the lawnmower set up. Residents would come. You turn in your old lawnmower, really didn't really have to work, even though we said it did. You turn it in, they would just dismantle it there, take it apart. For $100, $200, give you a brand new state-of-the-art cordless. They did that also with the commercial landscapers. They would show up and they turn in their old, you saw them, they had all this tape on it. It was gook, oil,
Loud.
soot, and they would show up and we just take them, destroy them, and state-of-the-art, it was gas at the time. And they're still, the carb, it's the carb-approved, they're gas, but even if you turn the best carb, gas-powered leaf blower in here, we would have to turn it off in 3 seconds. We tried it in our city hall. We turned it off immediately because it just smoked everybody out. But the electric one, we did a demonstration last night. Dan couldn't come tonight, but I can, blow Vincent's hair from here, and it sounds like you're vacuuming a floor. They're very quiet, about 60% less noise, and those are the worst things on a Saturday morning, Sunday you're trying to sleep, and the commercial gardeners are out there blowing and waking you up. So we go through our parks, and it sounds like, I walk my dogs through there on Thursdays when they're cutting or using the blowers or weed whackers. It sounds like a vacuum cleaner. It doesn't bother anybody. We've never had a complaint. The residents love it. There's no pollution. Usually the guys are dropping gas and oil on the grass. So our soccer fields, the kids I coach with asthma, never a problem. They love it. So they can go online and get that
And get-
75%, 60% discount, and they'll never have to buy gas, oil again. Long term, upfront cost is a little more than a regular gas, but it's like my car. I've got a hybrid. I've saved $12,000 over the last 16 years on my just gas alone. You'll save the same with this electric equipment.
And then, will they have any more of those at, a park or something where people can come in and trade them in, or do you
You can go online and do it.
and see where those are? Or?
Yeah, you just go online and let's see if we bring it back.
So they have them regularly at,
So we used to have them every one in each county at least, but now what we do is, because people wanted to come different times, so I missed it. Let's see where to go. There it is. So you can just go online. There's 6 steps you follow right there. Go online and apply, or purchase. I want to purchase. I'll go purchase my cordless electric lawnmower. You'll get a certificate. Then you've got to take your old one to a scrapper, turn it in. He'll give you a certificate. And the final step is you go back and turn it in AQMD. Here's your money. If it's a cheap one, $150. If it's a little more expensive, $200. Probably self-propelled, $250. Here's the money. Now you got a state-of-the-art, plug it in at night, never buy gas again, stuff like that. Yeah.
and then, Mr. Cook, we're looking into charging stations at the new park.
Yes.
possibly?
The number that was there, that Councilmember Cacciati showed, has actually went down significantly because of the plug-in hybrids that we are going through our new lease program. So as part of that, we were looking at charging station as well, going forward.
Great, great, super.
Can we look at charging stations at our existing park? At like Oak Park?
Yeah, we're looking at both facilities depending on where the plug-in hybrids are going to be throughout the city.
Mayor, may I recommend when you put in your charging stations, and it depends what the vehicles the residents have, there's different levels. Again, you've got level 1 is the superchargers, like a 440 volt, where a typical electric car might charge it 80% in 20 minutes. You plug in like you're going to get a cup of coffee or something like that. The level 2 is a 220 volt, and that might take 4 to 6 hours. So depending, you may want to look in have like a level 1 where cars can just come in, and I'm not sure where you're going to locate them, near a food place or something like that. But that's a consideration. You want to do how many do you want? Level 1, level 2.
Good to know.
Because we put some in the parking lot, and they didn't consult me. The staff put them in, and we had a couple residents show up. Why didn't you put in level 1? Because I want to pull up there, go across, get a meal for half an hour, 45 minutes, and now I got to wait 4 hours to get my car charged up. So it's important what level you put in, install.
Thank you. Thank you. If we have any questions, can we call you?
Anytime, yeah, and we have staff come here. Rainbow's here. Ben Wong used to be a mayor of West Covina's on our staff, helping out a lot. Ben would work for Edison for many years and understands the electrical things. And actually, Ben was right. We were just looking at Edison as a program. Ben, is it over $1,000 after January 1st?
It's $1,000 rebate if you put in an electric charger at your home.
That's just Edison. In addition,
Hybrid or plug-in hybrid or all electric.
yes.
Do you have to own a car to put one in?
You have to own the car. You have to send in the registration.
Or
I
leasing.
thought I'll just pre-wire my house and put that in. I
And
don't have
rent
it.
it?
I don't have an electric car, and rent it. Yes.
Thank you. Did you have a question?
On the, hi, Michael, hi, by the way.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Been a
good to see
while.
you, Tom.
I didn't recognize you at first.
He
Um,
biked here today too. I
Yeah,
think.
Bike's back there.
Yeah.
actually, you were in our first, you rode your bike on our Rosemead Boulevard.
You're
grand
right.
opening.
Yes.
I think that was the last time we saw you.
Still write it sometimes.
Yeah.
On the lawnmower rebate program, do you have to have an old gas mower to turn in?
You know, Tom,
What about an old electric one that has the cord? Does that qualify for that program?
that doesn't really qualify, you know.
Okay.
I don't want to say anything, but, there's a lot of secondhand, beat-up gas lawnmowers out there.
There's one on Camellia. I saw it today.
So
Go
pick up
get
one
it.
at a yard sale is what
I
you're
would go to
saying,
yard
and then
sale,
turn
and
it
that
in.
gets it off the road.
Okay.
I'm not
And
saying
this
anything,
one's
but you
free.
turn, nobody's
It's
gonna
out
ask a
with the
question.
trash.
Okay.
I know
get it.
nothing.
Across
Thank
the
you.
street.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions?
I'm good, thank
No.
you.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
for
Mayor,
coming.
council members, members,
Thank you.
staff.
Tom, go pick it up.
You should.
We're going to move on to item C, introduction of Miss Temple City Royal Court. I'd like to introduce Miss Kyla Sickles. It's not Kyla Sickles. Kyla Dunn. I know, it says Kyla Sickles on my notes, sorry. Who's going to introduce our new court?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, City
evening.
Council. Again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kyla Dunn. I am the director of the Miss Temple City Ambassador Program and Pageant. Behind me, I have 4 of 5. One is on vacation. It's summer. Of our wonderful court members. Before I have them introduce themselves, though, I want to give an overview of the program for anyone in this room who doesn't know who we are, what we do. So when I took over the Miss Temple City program, I gave us a slogan. It is, believe in you, be the change, dare to dream. It's the 3 goals that I have for every single one of the girls who goes through my program, whether they make it on the court or just come through as a contestant. I want each of the girls to be able to believe in themselves, gain more self-confidence. I know in this day and age, young ladies, self-confidence is a huge, huge issue that we are dealing with. And I want to do my best to combat that. I want these girls to also be the change. I want them to see things in their community, in their world that they want to change, they want to do something about. And I want them to feel like it's okay to go out and do these things, make this change. Yes, they're young, but if you get started now, you'll go on and do great things. And 3, I want them to dream big. I want them to think about grand things that they can do in this world. Start small, build big. You might not think that you can do it now, but set those goals, keep going, and reach those big dreams. I know some of you in this room, Mayor Fish particularly, you've known me since I was, yay high. And I know a couple of you council members have been council members since I was a contestant myself. This program made a huge change in my life. And I took over this program at 19 years old, and I wanted to give future girls that same opportunity that this has given me. And so that's my spiel about Miss Temple City, why I'm here, why it exists, and what I plan on doing with it. And now I'm going to turn it over to the girls and have them introduce themselves. And council members, I noticed some of you already put your pins on. We gave you guys pins tonight of our little logo, so I hope you enjoy.
Good evening, council members. It's a pleasure to meet you tonight. My name is Sarah Chavez, and I am a 2019 Miss Temple City Princess. Thank you.
Thank you.
No relation, by the way, right? Just want to make sure there was no. Maybe there is, I don't know.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Serena Chin, and I am a 2019 Miss Temple City Princess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Shanessa Larsul, and I am a 2019 Miss Temple City Princess.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patricia Pang, and I'm 2019-2020 Miss Temple City. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question for you.
Kyla, can you tell the council, I'm still not sure anymore. I mean, it's changed for so long. I know that financially, the chamber used to support Miss Temple City, and now who supports you? Is it all funds raised by the girls and?
Yeah, we have completely separated. The chamber was going a different direction, and so we just kind of decided to go our own way, and we became our own nonprofit entity. So we are our own 501c3, right? Okay. I know there's different ones. We were looking into which category we fit into. We are a 501c3. Yeah.
Well, I had mentioned this quite some time ago, but we do have our Australia Students Ambassador Program, and I think maybe it might be time for us to take a look and see how our city can help support the program, whatever that might look like. But I mean, I know that you two are ambassadors for our city, and although you don't go across the world, I mean, you do represent our city, and so I think maybe at some future time we can talk about that and see how our city can support your program also.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be more than open to the idea. Any talks?
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
And can you tell us who is missing?
Princess Kaylee Chandra.
Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody knew that there's 5.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the city council and the city, we have some certificates for you. Okay, so if council members would help me. I lost my sheet. I think there might be one for each of us.
Thank you.
I'm not sure who's missing.
Oh.
Who's missing it now?
I have the missing one.
You have the missing one?
Kaylee?
Okay, well, just come up here for the picture. When I call your name, I'm going to give you your certificate and just come up here for me to take a group picture. And I'll just read this. I believe they all say the same thing. This says, City of Temple City Certificate of Recognition presented on behalf of the citizens of Temple City to, and this is for Sarah Chavez. Congratulations on being selected as princess for the 2019-2020. The City of Temple City is proud to have a young lady with your charismatic friendliness and professionalism as a representative of the city. Congratulations. Thank you. You can have this, and you can come up, and I love your crown.
Okay, and this one is for Serena Chen.
And Patricia Pang.
This one's for Janessa Larsul.
And this one's for Katie Sandra.
Okay, we're going to move on to item D, Parks and Recreation Month Proclamation. I'd like to introduce Steve Lawson, Parks Manager, who will provide a brief overview of the Parks and Recreation Month.
Good evening, Mayor Fish, Mayor Pro Tem Chavez, council members. Very excited to be here this evening to celebrate Parks and Recreation Month. As you may know, July is designated at a national level as Parks and Recreation Month since 1985. But I'm proud to announce this is the first year that I'm aware of that the Temple City Parks and Recreation Department is celebrating this event. We're very excited as a team. As you can see, there's several men and women of our outstanding team in the audience this evening. In looking at the goal of Parks and Recreation Month, it's really to promote, create awareness of the importance of Parks and Recreation as a whole to a community. I know our city manager has mentioned in the past what makes a good community great. A lot of the times are the different programs, activities, services, and whatnot that a Parks and Recreation Department has to offer. Very proud of the events and the programs that we offer as a department. When I was here 3 years ago, I'm not going to lie, my first 3 weeks on the job, I was absolutely blown away for how small of a city we are, the amount of programs, services that we offer, not only just offer, but at a very, very high level. And that's just a testament to the men and women out here in the audience this evening. We all work very hard. It's kind of fitting that Parks and Recreation Month falls in July, and this is our last week with our leader of many, many, many years. So it's kind of bittersweet, but we're happy to celebrate that here this evening with her in attendance. I'm pretty confident in saying and speaking for our team that we're fortunate to work for a city whose residents support Parks and Recreation so much, as well as elected officials, appointed officials, and staff. It's very important, I think, what we do, and it's great to have that support to help our jobs just a little bit, make them a little bit easier. The theme for this year's Parks and Rec Month is Game On, and our team has worked very, very hard in a short period of time to get the three events you see on the screen there, and we're going to talk shortly about those planned, as well as many other events that we have during the month of July. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tony Villalobos, our recreation coordinator, to quickly give you an update on some programs that he's working on this month. Tony?
Hello, City Council. How are you guys doing today? Good.
Thank you.
You know, one of the reasons that I got into Parks and Recreation, the main reason I got into it was because of community events. And it's why I wanted to be here in Temple City, because the council has always supported those events. The management here, we are going to be losing Kathy very shortly, but the management here has been super supportive of everything we've wanted to do. It's one of the reasons that I started here as a part-timer, loved it, continued in recreation, and then came back because of what Temple City and what Kathy taught me at a young age. So thank you for that. Some of the stuff that we got going on in July is, well, you guys know our summer concerts are underway. We are in the 3rd week now, and you can see on that calendar right there, it shows all of the concerts that we do have in July, including who is performing. So we will be having our hot dogs tomorrow. It'll be The Answer, also known as The Answer to Classic Rock. They love adding that part onto it. But this year we also have a new addition to summer concerts. Is on Thursdays, we are going to have our summer movies in the park. So we're going to be kicking off on July 11th, and that'll be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So it's family friendly. That is what we want. That's what we want to come out there, is just pretty much anybody, kids, adults, teens, seniors, and everybody in between. We want them to come out. We'll have some activities for them. We'll have Miss Temple City. Did they leave? No, they're still right there. Miss Temple City will be out there as well. So it should be a nice group effort for this Movies in the Park. The first thing that I want to talk about now from our 3 events that we've put into play this July is our Family Fun Night. So that's going to happen on July 9th. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. and it's themed our Fly a Kite Night. So we are encouraging people to come out with their kites. If not, we will have kites for them there. There's going to be staff that'll be out there from 6 to 8. They're going to be running some games for the kids. There'll be some crafts for the kids, and we will also have hot dogs, chips, and refreshments for them. So it's the first time we're doing it. I hope there's wind, because it is flying the kites. If not, I've talked to staff about possibly bringing some large fans out, but it should be a good night. And if for some reason there's no wind, we'll still make it work, because that's what we do.
That's right.
Any questions? No?
Maybe you can
Oh,
decorate a
go ahead.
kite if there's no wind.
So based on my experience at Live Oak Park, the best wind is from 5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Yeah,
so
start
right
early.
at 6, we need to be out
Right
there.
at 6, you gotta be out there. yeah.
Okay, good to
Because
know.
after 7, it starts dying down.
Oh, that's when kids start running with the
Yeah,
kites.
they can run with it.
Okay, and we will have, like I said, crafts and other things just in case that wind's not kicking up as much. Any other questions about that? No? Okay.
I have a question. Are you going to be selling food?
We will be having just the hot dogs and
okay.
chips. It'll be like a combo, or they can buy individual. It's their choice, really.
Excellent.
So yeah, we'll have that out there. Next, I'd like to bring up Roman Rodriguez.
Good evening, City Council, Madam Mayor, Pro Tem Chavez. Second event I'd like to talk about is the Neon Night Walk. It'll be on Friday, July 26th, from 7:30 to 9 p.m. We're going to be utilizing the Live Oak Park walking path, about a half-mile new rubberized surface tip put in about 2 years ago. The goal of the event is to bring families out, get them out into the park in a different setting. We thought it'd be very fun to get them out there, get some games, some music going, turn off the lights, get glow sticks, and set up these black light stations. So we hope to bring everyone out, have fun, and really just kind of show a different aspect of the park and just get people out there to exercise and just enjoy some family time in a different way together.
Great.
Are there any questions about the Neon Night Walk?
No.
Well,
Great idea.
pardon my ignorance. What are black lights?
Black lights
How
are
lights can be black?
they're like the Halloween lights. They're black fluorescent lights. So anything underneath it will glow.
Will glow.
Yeah, will glow, and we're set up some stations. So when you walk
Do
underneath,
you have to
them,
wear white to glow, or
you don't
just
have to
any
wear
color?
white, but we'll have a neon paint available. And if
Wow,
if
wow.
any color, almost if you ever been in the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, it glows similar to that. So just another aspect to add to the park after dark.
Thank you.
All right.
we have any-
At this time, I'd like to invite Veronica Luna and her team to talk about her event.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Happy to be here tonight. Very proud to be a part of all of this. This is, I've always known about National Parks and Recreation Month, but I've never been a part of a city that celebrated it in this way. So it's really nice to let the community know all about what recreation has to offer, the benefits that it gives to the community, and how it really just is an opportunity to bring families together. So we're really excited about our events. I'd like to give just a few details about the third and final event for the month, which is Bark at the Park. Bark at the Park will take place on Tuesday, July 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. and it'll feature a variety of activities for dogs and their owners. We're really fortunate this time. Our senior recreation leaders have taken a lead on this event and have come up with a great line of activities. We have Rachel Parnas, Juan Pasillas, who wasn't able to be here tonight, and Desiree Pacheco. They've really, like we said, we've come up with a lot of things in a really short amount of time. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Rachel Parnas, who's going to give you more details on the highlights of the event.
All right. Hello, good evening. So we've kind of worked, basically we just want to get as many people out as we can. So we've contacted a variety of vendors who will come out and share everything that their businesses have with the community. We're going to have some photo ops, something like a smooch or pooch, kind of like a kissing booth with your dog. We're going to have some caricature artists there to be able to draw up the owners and their dogs. An agility park made out of Parks and Recreation equipment. A water, like a splash pad, water play area for the dogs, and then also like a fashion show / canine showcase. So it should be a really good time. We're excited, and it's our first one, so we're hoping a lot of people come out with their dogs.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Do you have to register the dogs ahead of time to be in the fashion show?
You don't have to. You can
just bring them that day.
Yeah.
I have actually a question on a neon walk. Can people bring pets to walk? The night with the neon night walk, can they
walk with their pets?
walk with their pets?
Yeah, as long as they're leashed.
Leash and then they put a little glowy on them? Yeah, oh, that'll be cool. That'll be fun, yeah. Thanks. Great ideas.
Thank you.
And if I could just quickly conclude the presentation, all of these events you see out here wouldn't be possible without the hard work of our park maintenance team, who keep our both of our parks just looking beautiful. And along with that, we also have our tree crew, who does an outstanding job keeping our trees trimmed, healthy, which really helps obviously the aesthetic and monetary value of the city. So I just didn't want to forget them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. I'd actually now like to have Kathy come up and her entire team come up while I present this proclamation, and also my colleagues. This is so pretty. Isn't that pretty? I'm not gonna read the whole thing. It just said, City of Temple City Proclamation, Parks and Recreation Month 2019. Congratulations. There you go, honey. Okay, come over here and watch that. thank you, everyone. I know this council has a special place in their heart for Parks and Rec because, as you know, 3 of us were commissioners, so we love what Parks and Rec does. So thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move on to item E, Parks and Recreation Director Retirement Recognition. If I could have Kathy Burrows come up and be maybe embarrassed a little. Just stand right there. I'd like to invite the city council for any remarks. Did you want to start, Jens?
Sure. So Director Burrows, this is really sad to see you go. I mean, for all these years that I've been associated with the city, you've been the head of the not only Parks and Rec, and you have been our interim city manager as well. I don't know if people know that. And I was really impressed, I have to say, the first year when you were the first time you were the interim, you actually presented the city budget to us. I was truly, truly impressed that you could play all roads. So, yeah, it's really sad to see you go. I think you brought great assets. There were many times I went to you and asked for advice, and people didn't know that, but you and I had some private conversations, and thank you so much for all your work, hard work. And the city is really well known to the outside world, to the public, for our Parks and Rec program, so thank you so much for the great work.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb?
So, Kathy, when I first got on council, there was so much that I didn't know about Parks and Rec, and she taught me so much about it. And you were always very open and willing to share a lot of information. And I know Mayor Pro Tem often refers to Kathy as one of our historians, and I found that to be very true and very accurate. Thank you for also going along with the Facebook Live stuff that was going on last year. She was one of our interviewees on a subject sharing the Parks and Recreation Department. So that was very informative, and we got a lot of great feedback from your presentation. And so being not only is Parks and Rec the face of our city, but you being the face of Parks and Recreation for such a long time, I think your leadership has been enduring and successful, and I wish you the best in your well-deserved retirement.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Kathy and I served on, I served as a Parks and Rec Commissioner for 19 years and was able to work with Kathy, and actually our sons grew up together, and now they're old and independent. Isn't that nice? But I just want to thank you. You made serving on that commission so much fun, and I think it was the foundation which makes me a better council member today. So I want to thank you for your friendship and most definitely your dedication in making our city so much fun. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Thank you. For those of you who don't know, we had a big party this afternoon for Kathy, and very well attended, and we all had the opportunity, of course, to express our thoughts, and not to belabor the point, but I think the takeaway for me from this afternoon was the true love that everybody has for you. And I know that might sound kind of corny, but I think everyone there really was touched or has been touched in one way or another by your work here for the city, by all the things that you've done. Personally, I think I might have mentioned it before, I'm going to miss our Tuesday morning talks when I drop those donuts off at the Parks and Rec, but we'll have to arrange another time to do that. I always like to quote baseball and use those a lot of times, and there's a famous quote by Jackie Robinson, and I think I have it right, but he said that a person's life is only important as the impact it has on other lives. And Kathy, I want you to know that you're in that category. You've had not only an impact on the city, but on the lives of so many people, and we will be forever grateful. And a testament to your leadership and to your mentoring is the fact that you have 3 commissioners up here on the dais, and I think that says a lot to the impact that you've had on us and things that you've instilled in us. So thank you so much, and I know this is not goodbye, because we'll see you around, and but enjoy this new chapter in your life. I know you will, so congratulations.
Thank you. And Kathy, I just wanted to say again, congratulations. I know you're looking forward to not having to come to work next week. I think that'll be great to be able to, I don't think you're gonna be sleeping in, though. I think you're still gonna be waking up at, 5:30, and, my first experience with city government was with your leadership as a commissioner, and, again, I just wanted to say that you taught me a lot. You were always very gracious, especially when our commission came up with some, what we thought were really great ideas, and then you would bring us back to earth by saying, well, that's either too expensive or not legal. But we always had great ideas. We were full of things we wanted to do. So I appreciate that. Again, I also appreciate your friendship. And the other thing that we haven't mentioned is that you're also a resident. So this is also your community. So we know that you're not going anywhere. We know we're going to see you at events. We know we're going to get your support. I know for a fact that the department is going to be calling you for little, for little odds and ends that, and advice. So you're not going to be going away anytime soon. So again, please have a wonderful retirement and come and see us. And take care and travel and go to games. And I know you're planning on going to Disneyland, so you're going to have a great time. So again, I just wanted to say congratulations. And I have a couple of things that I wanted to present to you. So if my fellow council members.
More stuff.
I know, a lot of exercise tonight. Thanks for you. That's why I had your staff come up last time. City of Temple City Certificate of Recognition, presented on behalf of the citizens of Temple City to Kathy Burrows. In recognition of 38 years of dedicated service to the community and residents of the City of Temple City, we extend congratulations and best wishes on the occasion of your retirement. Then we have one more thing. Isn't that pretty? I know. Kathy Burrows. In recognition of 38 years of service to our community, our congratulations on this important milestone. We thank you for your commitment, dedication, and time serving the public and residents of Temple City. Happy retirement, 2019.
I asked the city manager if I could say a few words, and he didn't say no, but
You don't have to
promise
ask
to
him.
keep it-
Hey, we're in the city council chambers. You don't have to ask him.
I promise to keep it short. I just want to thank, actually, Steve kind of said a lot of what I was going to say. This is a great community. The community has always supported Parks and Recreation programs at our facilities over the years, and so thank you, first of all, to the community for your support. Thank you to the hundreds of individuals I have worked with over the last 3 decades, from recreation leaders on up through department heads and everything in between. our city attorney's office. When Councilmember, you mentioned I was interim city manager, one of the first things I had to do was hire a new attorney firm, and I think we're extremely lucky to get Burke Williams. Eric Vale was a tremendous help during that period of time, and Greg has taken on, and thank you for your guidance. City managers, I've only worked for 7 city managers in Temple City. It's been great, and I really want to thank Brian as well as previous city managers, especially those that pushed me and challenged me to do more, to get outside my comfort zone, given new responsibilities over the years that sometimes I wasn't real happy with, but it ended up being a blessing. And of course, the city council. I am extremely proud of the city council. I think this is one of the most cohesive councils I have been a part of. You are truly dedicated to the city, and your support for Parks and Recreation programs over the years is very evident. And to be honest, every council that I've been involved with has been very supportive of Parks and Recreation programs, and it makes my job and our job a lot easier. Thank you to the team. I think they do wonderful things. You don't do anything by yourself in Parks and Rec field. It's a team effort, and I certainly thank everyone for this honor. I am looking forward to retirement, but it's a little bittersweet. But the positive thing is I will still be around. I'll be here. I may be sitting out there for the next council meeting, but maybe not. But anyway, again, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, moving on to item 6, public comments on items not listed on the agenda. Jerry Jambazian.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I know that government works a little slow at times, but it's been a year now, actually over a year, that we don't have a entrance sign at the east end of the city. And I'm wondering if we can get an update as to the progress of what's going to happen, where it's going to be, and who's paying for it, and the cooperation with Arcadia and that type of thing. So just really haven't heard anything, and it's been over a year now since a Mustang came down Baldwin Avenue and just tore it all up. So if we can get some sort of report in the near future. Okay, thank you.
Brian, can you do that during your city manager update? Or do
If
you wanna
it's
do it?
okay, Mayor Fish, could we do that at the next council meeting? I can do a quick written report
Okay,
as well.
we'll do it at the next council meeting. Jerry? Thank you. Any other public comments? Going to close public comments and move on to consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be approved in a single motion as recommended.
Motion
unless
to
removed.
approve.
Second? Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Yes.
Mayor Fish?
Yes. Moving on to item 8, public hearing, none. Item 9, unfinished business. A, application of ordinance number 191034 pertaining to flag lots subdivision in the R1 zone.
Madam Mayor and City Council members, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce this before Mr. Forbes gives his report. He did write a fantastic staff report about this, but I wanted to give you a little bit more background verbally. We are here tonight because of my interpretation of what I thought was the will of the council with respect to ordinance 19-1034. Just as a bit of background for the public, this was an issue where the council changed the code to disallow two-story residences on the front lot of a flag lot subdivision. This was a matter that was raised by the council, went to a workshop in February, went through a planning commission hearing, and then when it came back to council, was approved on a 5-0 vote. Mr. Forbes' staff report details the standard process that staff will follow when there are changes to development standards in the zoning code. In this case, I interpreted a strong statement from the council of this as a priority for you, and I gave some direction to staff to give more immediate enforcement of this ordinance as respects pending projects. I don't have a preference one way or the other. Mr. Forbes is going to outline a number of ways that this can be implemented. There is no legal preference for me, one to the other. This is purely a matter of wanting to effectuate the will of the council. Questions were raised by applicants to staff. Questions were raised by applicants, I believe, to some of you. One of you did approach me, and we decided that because there is time, this ordinance does not go into effect until July 18th, that rather than having me try to interpret your will, we would come back tonight so that the 5 of you could give us direction as to how you would like to see this carried forward. So I will now turn it over to Mr. Forbes to explain some of the options and some more of the background. And please know that our goal here tonight is simply to effectuate what the 5 of you would like to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. As Mr. Murphy said, there are a number of options before you this evening, and this happens anytime the City Council adopts changes to the zoning code. There's always a question of what is it going to apply to, and as far as projects that are already in the process. Sometimes it's a non-issue because there aren't any projects in the process. In this case, however, we do have, there are a total of 8 projects that are in question. As far as how this will be applied to them. 4 of those projects have already been approved by the Planning Commission, but they have not yet received approval of their final subdivision map, nor have they yet gone through the plan check process and received building permits. So they do have the planning approval, but not yet the final map or building approval. The other 4 projects are at various stages of the process. We have 2 of them that the applications are still considered incomplete, although they were submitted a number of months ago. And then we have 2 applications that are complete and going through the process on their way to the Planning Commission. So at any point in the process where there's a I'm sorry.
Excuse me, but I think our report is a little bit different from what you're saying right now.
There was a typo on...
Because I'm showing 2 incomplete awaiting resubmittal and 1 deemed complete in process.
There's 2 columns in that table on page 3.
Yeah.
We were distinguishing those submitted before and after February 5th, which was the first time that the council talked about this.
Okay.
So if you add the one in each column gives you 2 total. So there's 2 incomplete, 1 plus 1 is 2 complete in process, and then 4 approved by Planning Commission.
So you have to go across then?
Yes.
All right, because you have the bottom.
So if I could just add to that question. So as of today, how many application is incomplete?
2.
2.
2 are incomplete, 2 are complete.
2 are incomplete, 2 are complete, and 4 have already been approved by Planning Commission.
What's the significance of before February 5th, 2019?
I can actually help with that. That was the date on which the City Council had a workshop where Mr. Forbes and his staff explained the options for you and the date on which you directed that an ordinance be prepared. Sometimes we see after an ordinance is directed by the City Council, there would be a flood of applications. In other cities, you see it often, where something like this, seeing that the standards may change, we might see 7 applications come in after that time when you've only dealt with this 10 or 12 times in the past 10 years. In this case, what Mr. Forbes is showing is that there was not a flood of applications following your direction. Most of these had been in process prior to the time that you directed the ordinance come through.
Thank you.
Perhaps just one additional question to the incompleteness. Are they very far off, and how do you determine complete or incomplete? Let's say you ask for 10 things, they give you 9. Is that that's obviously incomplete. But are there any other criteria that you use for determining the completeness of the application?
Typically, it's that some information is missing or something is unclear on the plans. Occasionally, we will deem an application incomplete if it doesn't comply with code and it's either way out of compliance with code or it's not even clear that the project can comply with code. then sometimes we will deem it incomplete on those grounds. I don't know offhand the particulars of these two, why they were deemed incomplete, because I intentionally did not want to get into the specifics of individual cases, and rather keep this at a more policy level.
Sure.
So I don't know the specifics of these two cases.
And also maybe as a point of clarification, as a policy, do you look at something as complete or incomplete before we collect the application fee? Do we take the
No,
fees and then do the determination?
Yes, we take when something is submitted at the counter, the planner will do a very cursory look over to make sure that at least there's plans and an application, and that generally all the materials are there. We do collect the fee at that time, and then we have 30 days from the time we take it in. We have 30 days to do a more thorough review and determine if the application is complete or not. Very rarely is a project withdrawn and the fees refunded. It's usually we send them a letter saying, here's the additional materials or information we need, and then it's a back and forth until we have enough to process the application.
I see. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up to that. On the two that are deemed to be incomplete awaiting resubmittal, I take it by your graph here, those both were submitted before February 5th. How long has it been since we have given them notice to do whatever they're supposed to be doing to resubmit? I mean, do we have an idea? Has this been sitting on the shelf for 4 months with no action, or 10 days, or?
I don't know the specific dates of both of these. It's been a few months, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's been no movement. Sometimes there is back and forth between the planner and the applicant. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there hasn't been progress. It just means that it's still not to a point where it's ready to be processed yet. If something is completely inactive for a number of months and we don't hear anything from the applicant, at that point we usually start the process of withdrawing the application on their behalf. So these have not gotten to that point yet, which means there's still some movement going on.
And how long would that be?
Before we deem it withdrawn?
Correct. Is that 6 months?
How long are we going right now?
Oh, 3 months.
Mr. Reimers is saying we notify them at 3 months if there's been no activity, and then at 4 months, if we still don't hear from them, we consider it withdrawn and refund their money.
And we haven't
So
reached that
neither one
point
of those is
otherwise.
to that point yet.
So they're not. Did you have anything else? Did you have anything else you needed to?
No, I was just, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to, just the kind of the four thresholds in the process, which are outlined in the staff report, but the ones that are typically used are, and this is in order of where they are in the process, and also the amount of work that is required by the applicant if they have to start over again. So the first one is just the application has been submitted. Second one in line is that the application has been deemed complete, which we have up to 30 days to do that. But then depending on the back and forth, sometimes it can be longer. The third step would be the planning application has been approved, which in the case of these projects would be by the Planning Commission, because the Planning Commission approves the tentative maps. And then finally, after Planning Commission, the next step would be the building permit application, and plans have been submitted for plan check. So those are the 4 steps before the final step that Mr. Murphy already outlined, which is if they don't have a building permit in their possession yet, then that's the last point in the process at which we could require them to go back and start over. But that's the most burdensome on the applicant, since they've already basically gone through the entire process.
Okay.
So what we've done, what we've done on recent ones, for example, on the ADU ordinance that came through here recently, we've been using the cutoff of the application being deemed complete, because that has been common practice in other cities and common practice here in the past. Our intention coming forward with the new zoning code update, just to make it very simple and clear, is to use the first option, which is just as long as you've submitted an application, then you're in under the old code, because then that avoids some of what we dealt with on the ADU ordinance was a little bit of the back and forth of, well, I thought it was complete and staff told me it wasn't, and staff didn't move fast enough, and those kinds of things. If we just do application submittal date, then that avoids that back and forth.
I have a question. Did you say that they pay when they submit it?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For this type of planning application, while we don't want to dwell on specific ones, generally what is required for them to, what is the requirements for submittal?
The two planning applications that they need, one is a parcel map, a tentative parcel map to
Okay.
subdivide the land. The other is the site plan review to actually approve the construction of the houses. So we need those two applications and the fees that go with those. We need the tentative map itself showing how the land is going to be subdivided. And then if they're doing the site plan review at the same time, which they typically do, we would need the plans for the houses on both lots. And then we also require them to submit the mailing labels to us for the public notice. And all of that together is the application package.
Would they have, when they submit a site plan, do they have to show you what the building looks like with a rough floor plan, what they're proposing, size and height and
Yes,
and elevations and so forth?
Yes, if they're doing the site plan review application at the same time, they have to submit complete architectural plans.
Okay, so what the reason I'm asking is I'm trying to gauge how much the applicant would have invested relying on the previous ordinance when they get to the planning desk, even get to the planning counter, how much work they have to do ahead of time in order to even submit.
By the time they get, just to come to the planning
Yeah.
counter and submit, by that time, they will have engaged a civil engineer to do the subdivision map for them, and then a designer or an architect to design the houses. Sometimes perhaps a landscape architect to start looking at the landscaping, because we do look at that in the site plan review.
Would they typically submit a grading plan at that time?
Do we require grading plans?
No, not grading plans yet, but okay.
We don't require it for the parcel map.
Okay, I see.
Sometimes they may have already started doing a conceptual grading plan.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
I'm sorry. Did we have any other questions from council?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I know the recommendation is for us to provide policy direction, correct?
Yes.
On this issue.
Yes.
Yes.
And then it seems to be whether or not the council decides to do it or not to do it still falls in the city's strategic goals. Because I'm just a little confused about that section. Ordinance number 19-1034 addresses the city's strategic goals of public health and safety and quality of life. The requested direction will address the same strategic goals. So we should then take those issues into consideration while we're making a decision?
Yes, I think that's just more of a generic statement that the zoning code and zoning regulations in general are intended to address the public health and safety as well as quality of life. So whichever direction you go this evening, you're going to be making that decision based on looking out for those
principles.
interests. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Mayor Fish,
Yes.
I do have one question. In the past couple years, or maybe in recent history, besides the ADU ordinance, has there been anything else that we've changed that would follow, that we had applied using like milestone 3 or 4, which is planning application? Yeah, in other words, has any of the stuff that's been sort of in the pipeline been, I guess, treated the same way that we had prior to this discussion, where we're telling them, you've applied and submitted, but because of this change, you must therefore make changes to your plans or to your submittal?
No, I'm not aware, and I was just looking at Scott. We're not aware here of the third or fourth options being applied, which is that you have to have planning, unless you have planning commission approval or plan check. I will say from experience, I have other cities that I've worked in, those have been used as thresholds on more what the council viewed as serious policy changes, but because those are so late in the process, in those cases, we made applicants aware months in advance that, this is the plan going forward, that if you do not have plan check submittal by this date, you are going to be subject to the new rules. So I have in other cities used the more severe cutoff, but with advance notice given to applicants.
And is it safe to say that for all the applications submitted prior to February 5th, the public had essentially, basically staff had no way of notifying those specific applicants that this
Right.
change would be coming, right?
Prior to February 5th, staff wasn't aware that this was
Yeah,
an issue,
okay.
so this isn't something that we would have brought up with applicants. After February 5th, when we knew that it was a concern of the council, and applicants started finding out about it, at that point, we started getting questions, and what we informed them was, the cutoff that we have used for other ordinances in the past is application deemed complete, but it is the council's discretion to have this apply, however they feel it's necessary.
Thank you.
May I have a follow-up, Madam Mayor? So for the one application that was submitted after February 5th, did staff, when they come in, did staff tell them that, well, you need to be aware, the city council is looking at modifying the ordinance? Were they informed that that was the case?
I believe we did. Yes, we did. Scott's nodding.
So the first day they walk in, we said, this is based on the old one, but we're looking at changing it. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. Do we do that in writing or just, no?
No, at that point, the council staff report was available, so we could have made that available to them or made them aware of that, but we wouldn't typically give them a letter in writing saying that something might be changing. It would just be verbal.
Okay, thank you.
I have one follow-up question. So, let's see if I understand this correctly. So on the two that are deemed to be incomplete awaiting resubmittal, the applications have been submitted, and I believe that you talked earlier that there is some work that leads up to that process, correct? That when they come to the counter with an application, they've put some work into this, correct? Or no?
Yes, by
Okay.
the time that they're
On a scale of 0 to 100, how much work of the project have they done at that point? 25%, 50%? Can you give us any kind of estimate on where we stand with a person who is at the counter with an application?
That's what I think.
It's, if I can step on that, I think different developers can come in a little bit differently, but I think
Well, they all need the same stuff on the application, don't they?
True, but I think for the council to consider today, there is substantial costs that are being incurred once that application is submitted. It really depends on.
And that's the reason I'm asking the question, because I think what we're being asked here to do is to make an equitable decision based on these applications that have been at some point in time. And I'm just trying to get an idea of, because I'm not an expert in this, I'm not really sure what work has been done. I'm just trying to get something straight in my mind. Where do these people who have submitted their application, it's incomplete, we're awaiting resubmittal, how much work have they actually put into this that may require some equity?
Well, I think
I'm going to let Mr. Forbes give you probably his best
That's all
estimate.
I'm asking, yeah.
But
It's not an exact science.
sure, but realistically, somebody can turn in an application that, if it's a designer and not an architect, that designer may have done a design for the home that's very poor. They could find out that the engineer that did the work on the lot split really rushed it, and it's a poor job, and so.
Well, I'm not trying to grade the work itself, I'm just trying to find out what work was done.
Totally understand, but because it's a poor job, it has to be redone to the point where, on that particular application, you may only be at the 25% point, where your average person might be already at the 75% point. And that's what I think is best, is sort of the average that we send back for more.
And if you can't answer the question, I understand, I'm just trying to understand the process.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a rough guess number range, kind of what Mr. Murphy said. But before I do that, I want to point out too that in some cases, and applicants will tell you too, that by the time that they've gotten to the point of submitting, it's not just the money that they've put into the plans or the designer, but it's that they've purchased the property with an expectation of being to develop it subject to the rules that were in place. And there's no, they're not guaranteed to have those rules, and the rules can change any time, but it's not just how many checks have they written, it's also what was their expectation on their financial return going into this
Well,
in
and
the
my question
beginning.
didn't have to do with monetary value either. I just want to know how much work have they actually put into this project when they get to the application process?
Yeah, I mean, I think the numbers that Mr. Murphy threw out are probably, it's probably a range of between 50 and 75%, depending on, how much advance work they've done, how much they're trying to move ahead. Sometimes they'll move ahead in the process to try and shorten the time between planning commission and starting plan checks. So it really varies, I think, project by project, and varies depending on, what the owner's expectations are for schedule and what the money situation is. I think there's a lot of variables.
So the work on these projects, what you're saying, correct me if I'm misunderstanding, the work on these projects generally, by the time they get to the counter with their application, is 50 to 75% complete?
In some cases, yes.
Wow.
I would think so.
And so the rest is, seems like, to me, it seems like after that application is when everything really kind of starts working, but I guess not.
No.
Okay, I just want to understand it. I'm not a planner, so.
Yeah, by the time they get to, the planning commission wants to see what the house is going to look like, not a sketch. They want to see exactly what is this setback, what is this height,
So they get a pretty good investment, not only, and I don't mean to mean monetarily, but time-wise and work and everything. That's kind of what I guess I'm getting to is, by the time they get to the application process, they're committed to this project pretty much.
typically,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, fair enough. Thank you.
I have a question, Michael.
Mhm.
You said that when they submit it, that there's kind of like a maybe checklist of all the things that they have to have.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Do you ever reject it at the counter when things are missing from the checklist? Like, let's just say they are missing, I don't know, drawings or something. You would just reject it and it wouldn't even get submitted, correct?
If there's not enough information that we can even begin reviewing the application, we will reject it. Or, sometimes, like, for example, the mailing labels are a big part of the package because you can't go to a hearing without those, but we don't need the mailing labels up front to start reviewing it. So we would tell them, hey, you're missing your mailing labels, so you're gonna get deemed incomplete, but we'll go ahead and take it in so that we can start looking at the rest of your application. But
Okay.
if it's, chicken scratches on a napkin that, hey, I want to
Right.
build something that kind of looks like this, we would say, I'm sorry, there's not even enough here for us to review and reject that at the counter.
So no one is going to submit something unless they're serious, is the bottom line, correct? They're not going to just come in and say, hey, I want to build a house on the corner of this and.
Unless you're the
They have
terraces.
to- they're going to have a plan, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
my
It's not-
experience in this city with the applicants that we have here is, yes, by the time they're at our counter, they're serious and they know
and
what
that's
they
the
want to
first step,
do.
Is to go in.
Yes, and so, sometimes they'll come in and talk to us beforehand about conceptually what they want to do, but by the time they're writing us a check and giving us plans, they're serious about moving
Okay,
forward.
that was my question. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open public comments. I have a Cameron Lau.
Good evening, Council Member and Mayor. My name is Cayman Lai. I am a 19-year Temple City resident. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for the great work you have put into the city in your free time, no paid. And I have seen great changes in the city, in my neighborhood. I appreciate that. And I also believe I have made good choices in all the council elections. My second identity tonight is I'm a designer. For these 8 projects on your list, 4 of them are my projects. Okay, but okay, after the clarification tonight, like the Olive project, 9711, just approved, got the final map approved. The other one, okay, Hermosa project, okay, a month ago, got planning commission approved. And I have 2 outstanding projects here, okay, which also confuse me, which are, sorry, okay, give me a little time. I'm a little nervous here because because the owners has committed and put in so much money for this property, and they have their dream to build their homes here. For the 2 projects, my outstanding 2 projects, they are all homeowners. They're not planning to invest and build and take their money and run away. They want to raise their family here. Especially you can see there's 1 family over there on the right-hand side. They have 4 generations here, and they have 1 newborn coming, expecting in a month or 2. I have 2 projects here. I think it's questionable, okay, that maybe fall into the incomplete, okay, but I'm not sure. I haven't been told that this has been incomplete. The first one is 10051 Olive Street. I'm sorry, okay, do I have a time limit?
Yeah, you have about a minute left.
Oh, I have a lot to say.
Okay, just,
This project, okay, this project was sold twice, okay. My first client, they bought this project, okay, in 2017, late 2017, and they had the project almost ready to submit, but then they found out in last summer, the planning department has a problem with the open space definition, which has been in place for as long as I can remember, 20, 30 years. I've been working with the city over 20-some years.
you have about
So
10
that we have to hold the project.
Sorry, go ahead.
We have to hold the project. Okay, then the previous investor didn't want to wait, so they sell it to someone else, which is the current owner, Ryan.
Okay.
Okay, then we have to
wrap it
wait. We have to wait until the open space requirement changed, that they allowed back to allowed we can use a rear yard as an open space. We've been using that for the past 20 years. So they're now they're up to this stage, and I am working with the city all the time. They sometimes they joke with me, why don't we have a table for you? You come here every morning.
Yeah.
So I've been following this change very closely.
Okay.
And
You're gonna have to wrap it up. You're over already.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
We have a lot of people to speak. That's
yes.
why.
And hopefully they can donate some time to me. Okay.
There's one.
there's
Okay.
His name,
Thank you.
His name is donating his
What
time.
is this? What is your name? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So
Hurry up.
I lost. Okay. So we've been talking to the city. Okay. Would that new code affect us? Because they bought the property late last year from the previous owner. So they by good faith, trust, that they can continue the project. And I have feedback from staff. I don't want to say who. In general, that as long as we submit the project before the effective date, we should be safe. Just like in the past, like the second, the ADU ordinance.
Okay.
So we pay $6,000 application fee, and they have paid a lot of money on preparing tentative map, doing survey, soil report. We do the design back and forth, changing little details here and there, go to the counter, talk to the planners. So we've been continuing doing this, back and forth process until, they say, yeah, you good, submit. And we submit everything, according to the checklist.
Correct.
And they check everything, which is good. And I asked, are we safe? He said, yeah.
All right.
Okay, then we write the check and turn in.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I have to let the other people speak.
Okay. And the other project is similar.
Okay.
Okay.
We understand.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, one more. For the other one, the Arden project, we already had the tentative map approved, okay, 2017, but this project showed 3 times. There's
Okay.
also one problem, also the open space problem, that the previous owner doesn't want to wait.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
thank you, thank you.
Chris Hung?
Hi, good evening, Mayor Fish and council members.
Oh, I took it
I'm
backward.
one of the
Sorry.
project that is affected by this new ordinance. And my architect submitted this project about 18 months ago. So we've been working with the city very closely and trying to get it approved. So now I just got informed that you guys will apply this new ordinance that will affect my project. So it got me really concerned. As an investor, this is a very ongoing kind of like we've been waiting for it to get it built and sell to make profit. And this is our goal. And this is a beautiful city. We love it here. I just want to address my concern, and I want to request for allowing us to keep the current design, since we already submitted the plan a long time ago. And it's very, according to my architect, it's already close to being approved. So just want to,
So where's your application? Is it one of the incompletes awaiting resubmittal, or is it
I have no idea.
deemed complete? You
I have no idea.
Until you
But
don't
according to the architect, and the planner says at the very end of getting approved. He has an email from the city planner. It's not approved, but it's very
Very
close to
close.
approved.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't have
Thank
to
you.
mention my project address, right?
No.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, and that's it.
Ryan Chang?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Chung. I'm the property owner of 10051 Olive. I would like to start off by thanking the council members for your service to Temple City, and also thank you for hearing our concern tonight. My family and I have been a part of this community for 20 years. I personally love this city. I've grown up here. It's been my dream to grow old here and also raise my family here. And I've had the chance recently to turn that dream into a reality by purchasing this property. Prior to purchasing the property, I had to do a lot of planning, a lot of research to make sure that the city codes would be able to accommodate my large family. When it was confirmed and when we finally made the purchase, we immediately went into design phase. It took us 7 months to get to the point now. So we were able to finally submit the project. Since this ordinance passed, and if it does apply to me, it would completely be devastating to myself financially and emotionally. As you can imagine, all the time and effort and money that we spent on this is quite significant. The ordinance itself will greatly reduce the outside square footage of my lot and possibly reduce the value of the property if it does not go my way. We would have to also spend a lot of time to redesign and to see if it's suitable for us if this ordinance does go through. The purpose of this project is actually to build a family community. My grandma, who's here today, she's 85. My parents, my aunts, their health is not too well, so it's very important that we stay together and take care of each other. And also my wife, she's due in a month, so we have 4 generations, as Cayman said, living together. I really hope that the City Council could take all of this into consideration and allow me to continue my project.
Where are you in the process?
We submitted in May, so I'm not sure if it's deemed complete or incomplete.
So you submitted an application already?
Yes, fully paid for and everything.
Is it being deemed complete, or
That I am uncertain.
you don't know?
I do not know. But we spent a lot of money and effort and time to get it to this point.
I think we have a right list on this, I'm sure.
Well, is
All
it-
right, thank you.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Raymond Lee? Okay, Raymond, you said you weren't going to be up there very long. Raymond gave us time. Raymond gave you time.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, City Council.
Can you
Speak
come a
right
little
into the-
closer so we
yeah.
can hear you?
It's okay.
Thank you.
You can pull it up.
Okay. My name is Raymond Lee. I am a Temple City resident for the last 10 years. Since I moved into the city, I keep promoting Temple City because I feel this is the best city I ever lived so far. Before I grew up in Monterey Park, but I like Temple City. I keep inviting friends to come over. And today I'm here to help my friend to raise some words because I introduced him to Temple City. And I asked him, I also helped him look over his project, working closely with Cayman on his project. So Mr. Huang, which is also one of the project, 4922 Arden Drive, and he has been lived in Riverside County for the last over 10, 12 years, and starting from a few years ago, about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, we start talking about what city is the best around the San Gabriel area, and I promoted Temple City and invited him to come over and look at the city, and he loved it. And with even the older generation, the younger generation, and especially his son, who's going to get married after this house is built, and they want to raise a kid in this city because it's safe, because it's nice, because the school. So they look at this lot, and similar case to Ryan's case, that it's been sold twice, and the previous owner doesn't want to wait, and they bought it, and they believe by the time they bought this property, because they built it for their own, and they believe they have time to wait, even though the developer doesn't have time, but they spend. Mr. Huang spent about $1 million purchase this lot, and he just wanted to build a dream home in Temple City, so for his family to live. He has also have his two over 80 years old parent, and have a son. His son is getting married and gonna have a 4th generation as pretty similar to Ryan's case. So if
You have about 30
this
seconds left.
ordinance is tremendously gonna affect them because they invest so much money into it, time, effort, money, and everybody emotion is gonna greatly affect it. So he asked me to raise his voice and back the city councilman and see if he can continue and finish his project. That's what I got to say for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny Chung?
Good evening. Mayor Fish, Mayor Pro Tem Chavez, Councilmember Mann, Councilmember Sternquist, Councilmember Yu, thank you for constantly striving to improve Temple City. Your time and efforts are greatly appreciated. My name is Kenny Chung. I'm here to speak in support of my cousin Ryan Chung, as well as others who may be negatively affected by Ordinance 19-1034. You have already heard a number of different perspectives as various constituents have come up to express their concerns and viewpoints. You have heard from a designer who has helped many families design their ideal homes so that they may live in Temple City. You have heard from an investor whose unwavering faith in Temple City is manifested through his years of ongoing investment in the city. You have heard about a family that wants desperately to be a part of this great community so their children and their grandchildren may grow up here. Lastly, you have heard from my cousin Ryan. Ryan is someone that I have looked up to my entire life. He is hardworking and responsible. He has been going to work early in the mornings and coming home late at night for years, cradling that increasingly elusive dream of becoming a Temple City homeowner. He's working diligently to have the privilege of raising his children here and to be able to take care of his parents, grandparents, and his aunts. Mr. Murphy has asked for you to clarify your will and intent regarding the ordinance. I hope that you may vote on the side of equity regarding this ordinance so that Ryan and other property owners who have invested so much to be a part of this community may continue to move on and become a part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? I'm going to close public comments and move on to council questions. Comments? Do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Fish. So thank you for the folks who spent time to share your perspectives and stories. I think from a technical field like planning and myself in engineering, sometimes the technical stuff is lost, or sometimes the personal side is lost in the technical world. There's been a lot of discussion on, a couple keywords that struck me, equity being one of the key ones. And really, I guess equity could be a subjective thing for depending on who you ask. Based on what I see in staff's report, as well as some of the questions that Mr. Forbes had helped us answer, one of the key questions I believe Mayor Fish, you had asked, when do they pay fees? And that is upon the date of the submittal. So, and that is consistent with sort of, I'm going to bring in my experience working on the county side, also in the review side, but not planning on the engineering side, and that's also the case. The idea is that even though we are the public sector, we're not going to do work for free. Staff's not going to do free reviews for anyone who just wants to kind of run ideas by. You got to put something cohesive together enough so that staff can give you substantive feedback if your goal truly is to move a project forward. So for me, equity is applying codes and regulations that are in place at the time of submittal. Similarly, on the engineering side, the building code changes roughly every 3 years. And on the county side, essentially what you have is right before the building code changes, which we're going to get one change in 2020, there is a flood of applications because people know that change is coming. Although the building code is more routine, it's a little bit more different than the ordinance we're dealing with now, which is not as routine. So long story short, my take is I believe any ordinance that we enact and change as a city council should consider the date of when the application was submitted. And I think also Mr. Forbes kind of clarified, following up to Mayor Pro Tem Chavez's question, 50 to 75% of the work has already been done. And of course, that dollar amount could vary depending on the project, the complexity, the size. A lot of factors go into that, notwithstanding someone who we just heard just bought a property. I'm not sure when, but I'm assuming recently, if they were planning on doing the project. A couple other comments. I don't think completeness should be the key criteria due to the fee issue I mentioned, and also it also takes time for staff to review a submittal to determine completeness. So there is an element of that plan check process that is out of the resident's control, out of the applicant's control, which is different than when they've submit something to us. That's within their control, right? If they didn't submit by a certain date that it was effective, that's on them. That's their prerogative. If they were truly motivated to do something, then that's on their schedule. The city has, we didn't hinder or stymie them from their ability to submit it. Another thing, a comment from the discussion was kind of related to you know, if someone submitted something that was done by a poor designer, I understand that on the staff end, that does make staff's work a little bit harder because your corrections are probably lengthier, your review time takes a little bit longer. But from my experience on the county side as well, most residents are not technical experts. They hire professionals to do the work in that area for them. And I don't think residents should be penalized for accidentally hiring someone that does poor work. That's not on the resident. That's probably just bad luck or bad referral or who knows, host of other reasons. So I don't think that that burden should fall on the applicant to do that. And so I guess in conclusion, I believe our interpretation, and I think this discussion needs to be a lot more clearer for any future ordinance changes that we made. Because when we adopted this last month, I was under the impression that this was being treated exactly the same way as we had done for the ADU ordinance, for any other ordinance that we have changed. And so for me, it came as a big shock that we were actually doing it very differently. Although I understand Mr. Murphy's position and your explanation makes sense. So for me, it was a learning experience in that that can actually be done, because in my experience as a reviewer on my job, as well as the time spent here on the dais dealing with planning related issues, I was never under the impression that it was actually legal to apply an ordinance to projects in the pipeline. So that's actually something I learned that we could do in I guess, certain extenuating circumstances. So for me, the flag lot does not represent an extenuating circumstance that needs to be remedied immediately. So I would ask the council to consider, I guess from staff's report, it would be milestone number 1, planning application submitted. That's how we should apply it. Thank you.
Councilmember Yu?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would agree with Councilmember Mann's logic. I think something that Mayor Pro Tem had brought up before, the cost, the percentages of effort put in, I think those are very good reasoning how we should look at this this issue before us. Because, and I appreciate the our city attorney and view of how much I mean, if you ask the desire and will of the council, it's pretty clear. The council approved by 5-0 this ordinance, so we definitely want this ordinance to be carried out. However, there is also the question of equity, as the word was used, and to follow Mayor Pro Tem's line of thinking before, there's substantial investment into before the applicant would come to the counter, and also historically we have been allowing, whenever a new ordinance to take place, we have been allowing applicants as recent as the ADU applications to allow the ones who had submitted to be considered under the old rule. And I appreciate what Mr. Forbes has said, that it's not only the cost of design, which we understand to be fairly substantial, and having done a house just recently myself, I can't even put a substantial dollar number to it myself. It's also but more importantly, is like some of the applicants have mentioned, is the opportunity cost. They have invested into our city. They bought a piece of property that otherwise they may not have bought had they known this is going to be the case. So, however, at some point in time, the ordinance has to take place. So we have to draw the line, and in my mind, it would be fair if we allow the applicants who had submitted already, have invested substantially, albeit may not be 100% complete, to be considered under the previous ordinance. However, having said that, I heard a few things that I want to respond to the designer had mentioned, well, we were not sure about the interpretation of open space. I would urge the applicant and the designers to work with staff. I think there's a point where fighting staff's interpretation is probably not the wisest thing, you know, because there's a reason why our staff have make certain decisions, and just fighting it just delay the process. At some point in time, the new ordinance has to take place. So I will urge you to try to work with our staff. And finally, I would also second what Councilmember Mintz has said. Hopefully in the future, when staff bring a new ordinance to us, hopefully, if we've forgotten to talk about it, please recommend a time when the ordinance would take place and allowing applicants sufficient time to respond to the applications. So, thank you.
Councilman, not only will we do that, but with respect to ordinances that deal with development standards, we're going to generally take direction from what you say tonight. With respect to ordinances that deal with things like fees or uses, we're going to treat those on a one-by-one basis because your decisions about when fees should apply or your decisions about what uses you want to restrict or not restrict, those are going to be a little bit different than application of development standards. But after we get direction tonight, you will see in the ordinances coming forward that we're going to act consistently with the direction you give tonight as to this ordinance.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sternquist.
Yes, I have a couple questions. One is related to planning, but it's more for just something that popped in my head. You mentioned like development standards different from then looking at something case by case. When someone comes to get a variance, say for example, they have a flag lot. They've purchased the flag lot, maybe they purchased it 2 years ago, with the idea of building a two-story home in the front, which now this ordinance would not allow you to do. Could a resident who is in that boat, because now we're going to pass this moving forward, apply for a variance and meet the requirement on the variance that says another property is enjoying the same use that you want? How does that work?
So in general, and I'm going to ask Mr. Forbes to help me on this as well, but in general, there has to be something about your property, not a change in the law, but something about your property that makes it unique so that the benefit being enjoyed by another property cannot be enjoyed by you. An example would be a property that is 45 feet wide. We're not going to disallow any building or potentially force you to run a extremely narrow home on a 45-foot wide lot. That person can come in, seek a variance, and we can allow maybe some modification of setbacks. With respect to this ordinance, it would be difficult to see where you would be able to achieve a variance because A, it's a very new ordinance, and so there aren't necessarily flag lot front lots that have been developed in a way that makes them physically different or unique from other flag lot front lots in the city where the two-story house would not be allowed. Mr. Forbes?
But you would only need to find one, right? So that would be that there's not any.
No,
The reason I say that is because when I applied for a variance to build my home years ago, that was that was the main requirement, and my lot was unique in the sense that it was 40 feet wide, and my variance was initially denied, but fortunately the mayor was in the audience and sat behind me. He just kept saying, keep talking, keep talking, keep talking, and they'll let you do it because you have met these requirements. But so in my mind, when I was thinking, how would that work with this? because I was reluctant in voting for the ordinance because, again, after listening to the public hearing, I still have that question in my mind, but I voted yes for the ordinance, but it was reluctant, and I did say at that meeting, I had a concern about property owners, and the value of the property that they might see could depreciate, especially in light of, you have more ability in a two-story home to have less challenging requirements as far as the design goes. And I just know that from building my own home in the city. So I was just, if someone can prove that their flag lot, someone else isn't enjoying that, they would be able to get a variance.
Not necessarily. As Mr. Murphy said, the first thing to look at is there some unique circumstance? Usually it's related to the physical configuration of the property that prevents it from being developed. And when you're generally with a variance, when you're comparing it to other properties, you're comparing it against the zoning regulations as they are in place at that time. The nature of zoning regulations is they tend to evolve over time. So you're looking at a variance finding would not be, 10 years ago they could build two-story houses, but today I can't, so therefore I should get one too. It would be looking at the standards as they are in place today. Am I being deprived of some right that other property owners have? So it's looking at the standards as they exist at that time, not necessarily as they may have been in the past or could be in the future.
Okay, and the reason I asked that question is because in my mind I'm wondering, would we have more people coming forward saying, what other option do I have? Because I bought this home a couple years ago with intention of doing this, but now there's a new ordinance. And so you've answered that question for me. But, I appreciate our engineers, but to me, and the details, that you both deal with on a daily basis at work and, processes and stuff. But to me, this is just basic common sense. If you apply for something and you pay your money, you expect a certain, I guess, if anything, a certain, can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but
return?
Yeah, a certain return for what you paid for, and it seems like there's still even some concern about whether or not they don't know what stage they are in the process. But just to go quickly on this, I think that anyone who paid their money, was in the pipeline, like Councilmember Yu said, should be allowed to follow the ordinance that was in place prior to February 5th, I believe.
Prior to
Is it February?
July 18th.
Oh, July 18th.
Yeah.
Okay. But we did this on February 5th, correct?
No, that's when they had the workshop.
Oh, that's the workshop, okay. But it just seems like, why penalize people that were already in the pipeline when we've pretty much initiated the process for them by accepting the application and by having them pay for that application?
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Getting along.
Hurry up.
Okay. I have some concerns here based on what I've heard this evening, both on staff level and both from those speakers who got up to speak. One is I'm a little concerned that most of the owners, and even I guess there was a designer or a developer that got up, weren't even aware of the status of their application. And I don't know if that's a communication problem between the city and the applicant, but I would think that you would know that stuff. Maybe not, but that's a little concerning to me. And also, I'm a little concerned that, do we have a complete list here before us? Because based on what I heard tonight, I'm not sure if these are all the ones that are in the pipeline. Is staff sure that this is it? So there's nobody here tonight that's not on this list, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Because they didn't know if they were on the list, sounded like to me.
Well, I think some of the comments that you heard were from the owners, which may not, our communication is with the designers typically, so the owners may or may not be aware of exactly where they are or what the terminology is.
Okay.
They just know that an application was submitted and they're in the
Right.
process.
And also, Councilmembers Yu and Mann both mentioned the fact that previously we've applied the standard of when the planning application was submitted, but that's contrary to the staff report that we received that said that Temple City's default practice in recent years and a common practice in the region has been to use the threshold of the planning application being deemed complete. And this was used with the recent ADU and the Series 1 and 2 zoning code amendments. So which is it?
It is, we have used deemed complete, but frankly, and I think staff concurs with some of the comments that council's made about, once you've paid your money and you're at the counter. I think a lot of the discussion that we had, you may recall the appeal that came before you for the ADU. A lot of the discussion that was had on that item with the council and with the planning commission was when had it been deemed complete and why had it not been deemed complete, and the applicant thought it was complete, but we argued that it wasn't. And by going with the earlier threshold of just when the application is submitted, that eliminates all of that back and forth and all of that argument. So I think we would be frankly supportive of just saying when it's submitted as opposed to when it's deemed complete. But deemed complete is what we have
So it
used
sounds like
recently.
your default practice is gonna be the other way then.
I think given the council's discussion and given our recent experiences, I think the default we would lean toward just making the default that when you submit it. And then it's going to be incumbent upon us as well to be more discerning of what we take over the counter. And when someone, puts something on a napkin and throws it out just to try and beat the deadline for the new code, it's going to be incumbent on us to say, no, this is not a real application. You need to put some effort into it
And I
try.
trust that if that's the decision we make tonight, that's
Yes.
what we're going to do. I wouldn't expect otherwise, but
Yes.
yeah, because frankly, I don't see a whole rush of these, but maybe there would be, I don't know. Well, a new ordinance is always gonna have an effect on someone at some point. I mean, there's just no way of getting around it. Somebody's always gonna be affected. Of course, tonight we're here, and I stated this earlier, we're here to make an equitable decision. And, in the law, obviously, that's always a big issue is, the law is applied, but sometimes there's a question of equity, how it should be applied or when it should be applied. And frankly, I don't really have a big problem with the fact that using some standard, whether it be deemed complete or when the planning application is submitted. That's why I was trying to get an idea of, well, how much work has really gone into this application process. It sounds like it's a substantial amount of work, and so they do have some skin in the game, I guess you could say, by that time. My only concern also is these incomplete awaiting resubmittals. I'm not comfortable with the fact that it doesn't sound like they're really on top of those things. I mean, I heard the fact that, well, we sent a notice out after 3 months or 4 months. I'm not sure what that is or how we do that, but I would like to see maybe we follow up a little bit more on those. I don't think that we would want to have these applications just kind of floating around. And I don't know do we need that in our ordinance, or do we have something in our ordinance that says that, if you don't take care of something within a certain time period, or is that to the discretion of the planner? How is that handled generally?
It's the 3 months and 4 months is a policy, and it's kind of similar to like handling a code enforcement case. Everyone's a little bit different, and there's some back and forth with the applicant, and sometimes somebody's making more effort, and sometimes people are making less effort. Maybe they've run into a financial problem, and they say, hey, can you sit on my application for a couple months? Or maybe there's a family issue, and we don't hear from them. So it's more of a case by case basis. I don't think there's a need to necessarily
And I
codify
understand that,
it.
but maybe in effectively running a city, we need to kind of nail that down a little bit because it opens up too much for interpretation. As you said with the ADUs, we have people coming to us, well, wasn't really quite sure, somebody said this to me. And that's another thing is, do we send out emails that say that they're close to approval? I can't imagine that we would send an email to somebody that says you're close to approval. What does that really mean?
Probably
close
not.
to
It's
approval?
possible we sent it that's saying you're close to being ready to go to planning commission, but planning commission approves these, staff does not, so we wouldn't say that you're close to approval.
I mean, I don't know, maybe that's my legal background, but I think the more clearer you are, the more things are stated rather than being vague. And I mean, I can see allowing a certain amount of discretion, but I think your jobs would be easier if we had a set policy and we made it like that. Of course, there are always exceptions, there's no question about that, but, you know, I think it would make your job easier if we were to look at those things.
Mr. Reimers now that we have our database of all of our planning projects, Mr. Reimers regularly monitors it, and we have reports that run showing when the last time things were updated in the system, and when we notice something hasn't been updated for a little while, he'll approach the planners and say,
Perfect.
hey, what's the status on this?
That's great. I hear a lot of good things about Mr. Reimers.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's okay.
He's okay. All right, thank you.
Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I am sitting here listening to all my colleagues, and I have to say I agree with them 100%. I do believe that when you are submitting a plan, you are making a huge commitment financially, emotionally. You're taking into consideration your family, your finances. And I will say there was probably some kind of miscommunication. I know for me, I was always under the impression that it was going to be enforced from the submittal. When I was very surprised, William, as you were, when I got this, I thought, what are we talking about here? I mean, I know these residents have put in a lot of money and a lot of time. I know at least 4 of us have gone through either building new houses or doing major remodeling. And sometimes things take time. It's not always submit the plans, get the permits, go to commission, and you're done. I mean, again, as Councilmember Mann said, there's changes, and sometimes there's changes with the city, with the architect, the engineer. I mean, there's just so many things that can change in a very small amount of time. Things are gonna go back and forth. I'm sure there's not a whole lot of things that just go and are approved right away. I mean, that's, you know, I would be surprised to hear that. One of the things that I asked when we discussed this was, does this affect a lot of residents in Temple City, this flag lot issue? And I do remember being told, not really. I never asked if there was 8 pending. I probably should have asked that question. I didn't ask that. None of us asked that question. But that's 8 residents and 8 households that this is going to affect tremendously, and especially in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, nothing is cheap. And again, just from adding a second story, I can totally relate to that. And nothing is cheap in the fact that the price goes up in a month. So time is money, as they say. So I would have to agree with my colleagues that I would like for it to go to the submittal. I would like to make sure that we do include that in everything. And do remember to discuss that. If we want it to be something that isn't urgent, again, and no disrespect to you, but I don't remember it being that urgent. I mean, I remember it coming to the council, I remember us discussing it, but I don't remember it being something urgent like with other items that we've discussed where we all know that it has to be done right away. I mean, this was just something that was brought up, we discussed it, and we voted on it. I would like to thank our residents for coming in. I appreciate it. Again, you know, I feel that maybe I made a little mistake because I was not clear. I was not clear on this. You know, when I voted for it, I did think it was going to be in the submittal. It was never mentioned in any of our staff reports or any of our paperwork, so I just assumed it. So I apologize. Okay, do we have any other questions? Can I get a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance 19-1034 will apply to planning applications received on or after the effective dates of July 18, 2019.
And,
Second?
oh, I'm sorry. Does it have to include any further, not discussions, but anything further as far as you said you were going to put it in the.
We will take care of that going forward without, you're not agendized to do anything other than apply
Okay.
this ordinance, but
Got it.
we certainly, I personally certainly understand the direction that you want to go, and so we're going to make sure we do that going forward with everything else that comes to you of this nature.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that motion again?
That ordinance 19-1034 will be applicable to planning applications submitted on or after the effective date of July 18, 2019.
Could we add to that?
Sure.
Submitted and accepted by the city?
And accepted, that's meaning number 2.
No,
Accepted, not complete.
accepted.
Oh, accept, okay,
The
submitted.
concern I had was that.
Oh,
it
is
was
that,
mentioned-
that
No,
back
not
on
to come in,
napkin?
but it has to be accepted by the
Yes,
city.
yes,
I don't
yes.
want somebody, as I
Sure.
said before, come in with a napkin.
Yeah.
That's, I'm just, that's the point.
Absolutely, yes, that's a great suggestion, yeah.
Okay.
So, that's amended.
Okay.
No. You second?
Yes.
Okay. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Yes.
Mayor Fish?
Yes. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 10, new business, presentation of Archive Social.
Mayor Fish, members of the council, in our ongoing efforts to make sure that we are in compliance with the Public Records Act, Ms. Flores from my office will give you a brief presentation on some of the stuff that we're doing with social media. Social media being an important medium that we use to communicate with the public, but there are challenges that come with social media, and this is one of the ways that we have attempted to overcome that challenge in a ever-changing communications environment. So with that,
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mayor and Council. How are you? It's my first time presenting, so I'm very excited. Thank you for the opportunity. So today I'm here to talk to you about Archive Social. In my previous place of employment with the City of Doherty, I did get to implement this, and it's just a great way for us to really focus on bettering our social media platforms. As you are aware, we do have 4 social media accounts, and that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we do use
Weibo?
Weibo?
no, not Weibo. I'm sorry, I totally blanking out. I'm so sorry, I'm blanking out. The green
Twitter?
one. No.
No?
I'm sorry. The next door. I'm so sorry. Next door. So.
Oh, next door.
Of course.
Due to the Public Records Act, we do have to have some kind of archiving to protect ourselves. And Archive Social is an online system that serves up to 2,000 different government agencies. And some of the government agencies that I'm aware that uses is the City of Long Beach, the City of Doherty, and as well as I know the City of Covina is looking into using this system as well. Now, the city does have control of what we post. Our communications department is very good about deciding what goes onto our social media. However, we don't have control about what residents or people on our platforms remove. And that's where Archive Social comes in very handy. Now, social media has become a very important core tool for us to communicate with our residents, to inform them about events and other forms of types of information. And this is gonna really help us out. In the last couple of months, we've gotten a few public records requests. So what is Archive Social gonna do for us? It's gonna help us with the following project goals. The first one is to comply with the Public Records Request Act. It's gonna provide staff with an up-to-date technology. It's gonna further promote transparency. It's gonna protect our city from possible legal issues, and it's also gonna just set a stage for an updated social media policy that we'll be working on. So the big idea that I want you to go home with tonight is that Archive Social is kind of like a little chunk of a bigger picture that we're working to really utilize and really better our social media platforms. Now, let me just go back to this slide right here. Before, when we get a Public Records Request Act and we have to include our social media platforms, we had to do it what could be identified as the old school way. But what I mean by that is you had to take screenshots of Instagram, Facebook, and we had our communications intern do that. And it took her almost about a week to be able to produce all those forms of public records requests. And not only does she have to take the screenshots, but she has to manually input a lot of the information of, date stamps and other information as well. So what Archive Social is gonna do for us, it's actually going to just create these reports that before that used to take up to 5 days will now take about 3 minutes to generate. So on the back end, this is just a graph here. You have it on your staff report that it allows us to generate about 1,000 reports. And on average, we build about 109 records. What that means is it builds records from what we post on our social media. So if we're posting 190, if we're receiving about 198, you can see that we definitely have a lot of room for more. With our upcoming social media policy, our social media policy has actually have not been updated since 2007. Now, I know it may seem like a really long time, but Facebook and Instagram, for instance, are constantly changing their policy. So what it does push us to do, continue to update our policy so that we're protecting our city. So any questions so far, Council? Great. So here are some of the features that we could do with Archive Social. We can provide timestamps. We can detect when the content is deleted or edited. So for an example, let's just say we post something to promote the Camellia Festival, right? We are the city, we control what we post. Now, if a resident comments something that potentially could be inappropriate and then they remove it, we don't have any control of that. We have lost a public record. What Archive Social does is it keeps track of everything that has been deleted or changed.
Do we actually delete also inappropriate comments ourselves too?
We actually do not delete any of the comments. We do have the ability to hide the comments. And that goes into a bigger, deeper issue that could potentially lead to a violation of the Brown Act. And that we'll be discussing that a little bit further when we bring the social media policy to you. But of course, if something is posted that's inappropriate, we do have the power to block it. Now, if that person deletes it, then, we will have it on the back end.
What are some of the reasons? I was actually surprised people would go through public records requests to get social media posting. What do they need that for? Of course, we don't need to ask the question, but why do people want social media comments? Just curious.
Sometimes they
about
don't even ask for it. It just happens that it is a public record that was created by the city, and if we don't turn it over, then we're not fully responding to the Public Records Act. If, for example, to use the example that was just given, if someone asked for all written records relating to the 2019 Camellia Festival, that would include each social media post
I see,
because that's a
I
written
see.
record.
Now, the great thing about Archive Social as well is that all of these reports that could be easily generated. Of course, if it's a short report request that was asked for, it can be generated from. When I say 3 minutes, it's from inputting the data, the keywords of what the person is looking for. Total amount time is about 3 minutes. Of course, if the request is longer, requires more years, and it'll take a little bit longer, but it does get exported in a PDF format for us, and it's gives us the opportunity to either just say the person is requesting that we just do a report for Instagram, or we could do all social media platforms at once. So, which brings me to the next slide. The image on the left that you see is the cover photo, the cover image that gets automatically created. It says, I give you an example as the Connect magazine. So I exported a report of anything that shows up on social media with the Connect, related to the Connect magazine. And on your right, you'll see what some of the pages of the actual public records request would look like. The ones on yellow are the things that are posted by the city, and of course everything else in gray is what is posted by visitors of the page. So our fiscal impact, this is budgeted, and it will cost $2,388 per year to have this system. So it's, for a lack of a better term, this is more of an insurance policy for us. But it's just great that we have access to it, and we could generate those requests.
And it doesn't limit how many reports you generate?
It doesn't limit how many reports, but it could hold up to 1,000 per month. So we have plenty of room.
Okay, does council have any questions?
Just one quick one. For how does the Public Records Request Act treat videos? If someone, like you gave an example of course I'm asking for particular reasons. I'm just curious because, like in your example you gave was all written requests related to the Camellia Festival. And let's say we had posted a video showing portions of the Camellia Festival. Would that fall into that category, or is that?
In general, yes. Yes, it would. It's considered a digitally stored writing under the law.
Okay.
In much the same way, and probably the best example is the individually worn cameras used by law enforcement personnel. The taping or the digital taping on those cameras is considered
part of the
subject. Obviously, it's law enforcement. There are other limitations, but that is a writing that would eventually have to be given out.
Okay. And I guess that leads to my question about Archive Social. I see in the examples it retains pictures. So how does it treat videos?
It does almost what's a screenshot of the video, but it wouldn't really affect it because what we're looking to archive is the actual writing, not the motion of the picture.
You're talking about like comments and things
exactly,
like that?
Yes.
Okay. So then does because we have a YouTube channel, right?
Yes.
Would that fall under this category as well?
No, they actually don't have a connection to YouTube. Maybe that's something that they're looking for in the future. That's not something that I'm aware that could be. It actually doesn't have the option to add that form into
They don't have
archive.
that platform covered, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Not yet, but who knows? Maybe.
Okay. All right.
In
Thank
the
you.
future. No problem.
Is there any other questions?
I had a couple of questions. So are there other companies besides Archive Social to do this? If so, why Archive Social?
Yes, there's actually 2 other ones that are very similar. I can't name them off the top of my head. But the reason why Archive Social is stands out more to the other ones is because of the access that they have, how the reports are generated. A lot of the other platforms or other services available don't provide that PDF formats. That it's more like you get pieces of it and you still have to piece it yourself. Another feature is they don't comply with the Public Records Request Act. So they're actually considered number one, and especially for government agencies.
Also, I noticed in this example you gave us from Connect Magazine that apparently our city responds to, I guess, are these, I don't know, are these posts or emails or what are these things?
Sure. Sometimes individuals will not want to post publicly, so they will post privately to us, and we will respond privately to them as well.
But who responds in, because I see some are from Tinny, some are from another person, and some have no person. Do we have a policy in effect that who responds to these things? Like, for example, there was a question about a bus bench, and I thought the response was a little bit maybe more than, it's kind of almost giving legal advice or policy advice, because it talks about there's no room for that bench, and if we were to install a bench there, it would not comply with ADA standards. That seems a little bit beyond the scope of, I
Staff
don't know who's
was-
making that decision.
Well, inevitably, it always falls on me.
Okay.
So,
So you review all these before they get sent back?
I wouldn't say I've reviewed all of those responses, but I will get alerts from staff if there's a complicated issue or whatnot. And then the individual staff members will consult with the subject matter expert in that area. If it's, a planning issue or another issue, usually there's more of a referral than an direct answer to.
Can I go ahead and add to that? So there are assigned staff members that deal with the social media response, especially when they're private messages. And the reason for that being that we just don't have one person is, if that person is missing, then we have somebody that could quickly answer. So for instance, if I've only been here with the city for 9 months, and if I don't have the correct response, I'm pretty sure that I can determine who the right person in the city would be to answer that question. So I would screenshot, the request from the person and send it to, for instance, the planning department. Hey, we received this request. Would you be able to provide me with the correct response? If the person, and we always send a message like, at the time we don't have the person to answer, but please, we'll gladly get back to you as soon as possible. Once that person, that expert answers the question, we do get a response back like, hey, I touched up with this resident. And so it does we do get kind of like a closure on the case.
Do we ever get any questions to council members on this thing, or?
Usually not directly. There's not, if there is a question that goes directly to a council member, we will make sure that council member gets it. The only time I can really think of on social media that there was any direct questions to a council member was when Councilmember Mann was doing Facebook Live a couple times, but it was still, they were part of the chat and whatnot, so it was still kind of generically to the city, but not to a specific council member per se.
And I remember us talking in the past about having a social media policy. Do we ever do that? Do we even have a social media policy? You're working on that now?
This is part of the broader social media policy.
So that's going to be coming back to us at some point?
Yes.
Yes, in the fall, you'll be receiving that.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
you're for today you're getting Archive Social. The following would be discussing the advertisement ads, and then you will have your social media policy.
Good.
And just to follow up on your question, Mayor Pro Tem, on who answers the comments. On our current policy, we do state that the city manager or the person in charge gives the authority to certain staff members to answer those comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that Brian was on top of these things. I'm sure he was, but I didn't see his name anywhere, so.
Thank you. Do we have any other council comments, questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open public comments. Jerry?
Good evening again. again, just a point of clarification. Maybe I misunderstood when Ileana was describing the takedown of a comment. She described it as a violation of the Brown Act. Would it more likely be the First Amendment? What would the Brown Act have to do?
Brian, you want to answer?
Do you remember your comment?
I'll take the, Mr. Murphy, and I'll take this if you don't mind. Generally, yes, there are First Amendment issues, but we also have an obligation in what is being presented on our websites and our publications to ensure their appropriateness, and that's why Archive Social essentially takes a snapshot, keeps that record in place, so that if ever in the future we ask, can we see the complete record of your social media postings, including the comments, we have that complete record. It's just not showing publicly at that time. The First Amendment issue gets a little bit more dicey, but inappropriateness, racist comments,
I was just going to say something offensive.
Violate,
Name call.
inappropriate comments about gender, sexuality, those types of things. We do have the ability to at least remove those, but we have to keep a record of those going forward.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comments. I will entertain a motion to receive and file, correct? No motion?
No motion. Sorry.
Okay. Receive and file. Moving on to item 11, update from city manager.
Latest of the night, thank you to Ms. Flores for her first presentation to the council. And thank you to Ms. Burrows back there. Even though she's retired, she is still a trooper and hangs in there. But Kathy, Ms. Burrows, thank you for your decades of service. When I first started, Kathy was somebody I relied on to help me navigate through, and she's been a great colleague and a great partner, and I will personally miss her as well.
Keep her phone number in your Rolodex there.
I know where
On
she
speed
lives.
dial.
Rolodex, that's how old I am.
Okay, update from city attorney.
I was going to give a long presentation on the Senate Bill 330, the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, which takes the Housing Accountability Act and ramps it up. I'm going to put that off for another evening. It has been introduced, amended 8 times already, and as with many of the housing bills in Sacramento, would be a lot of fun to deal with. We can talk about that another night. I just want to also say thanks so much to Kathy Burrows. I recall the first time I walked into City Hall and she was serving as interim city manager, and a real testament to her. You don't often see a park and rec director serving as interim city manager, and so I knew that it was, something unique, and I've really enjoyed working with her these last years.
Thank you. Okay, council reports regarding ad hocs or standing committees?
I guess Councilmember Sternquist and I have one quick update on the city commissioner recruitment.
Okay.
So we've begun the interviews for some of the commissioner applicants, and we have the last batch coming this Friday. And so after that, we will be recommending a list for final council interview. I believe it's the following Friday, July 12th. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything you want to
Some
add?
really good candidates. Also, you're going to have a tough
Hard time.
choice in front.
It's never easy.
Yeah.
Any other reports? Okay. Council items separate from the city manager's regular agenda. Councilmember Yu.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I want to echo again, thank you, Director Burrows, for all the years of service. But I actually really want to emphasize the fact that when you were the interim city manager, I mean, you didn't turn that down when we just kind of dumped it on you. And you did such a wonderful job, and thank you for stepping up to the plate when the city calls on you. And you did such a wonderful job. You didn't skip a beat. You handled both jobs at the same time and did a wonderful job. Maybe we don't need 2 people from here on, but but really, thank you so much. I really enjoy working with you. And lastly, wishing everybody a wonderful 4th.
Thank you. Councilmember Mann.
Thank you, Mayor Fish. Just really briefly, I really enjoyed the Parks and Rec presentation on all the great things going on this month.
So excited about
And so I think that's a great way to like cap off your
Yes.
career, Kathy, is you end with a bang. You're like, look at all this great stuff that's going on. So I'm especially looking forward to Fly a Kite because my son is obsessed with anything that flies.
That's great.
So I'm gonna see if I can
We will hope for wind.
pull him out. Yes, and hope for wind. Yeah, I always try to fly a kite on my street, but we never get any wind, and I'm always worried about the line. So I'm like, probably don't want to do that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and wish everyone a happy 4th of July and safe and sane fireworks only, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think last year it was an improvement from the previous year before, so let's hope we keep that trend.
Thank you. Councilmember Sternquist.
I just wanted to remind people to have a safe and sane firework 4th of July. And, you know, there was a couple of days ago that I heard fireworks consistently
Oh,
from
yeah.
about,
Me too.
I don't know, maybe 11 to 4 in the morning, but I have not heard them for the last couple days. So maybe that's a good sign. Contract Cities and COG will be having a joint meeting in mid-July, and it's something I've been trying to get working on with them because Contract Cities and COG work on many similar items, but yet we work independently of one another. And when we go up to Sacramento, we're independent of one another, but yet we're promoting the same things. So that meeting is going to come up, and if anyone would like to be part of that, I can send you the dates. Mosquitoes, as it heats up, they become more prolific, so be sure that you're, tipping your pots and making sure that you're watering from the roots so that the water stays below and you don't water your plants from up on top, which will cause more mosquitoes to do what they do. Recently, all of us met with our Scott and Michael regarding the zoning and reviewing that. And the conversation came up about the terraces, and I asked them, what exactly is the status of the terraces? Because it's something that consistently, every single day, my mailman, whose picture is in City Hall, says, did you find out anything today? Did you find out anything today? And my neighbors are asking, and the residents on Primrose are asking. And, there was a few things that Michael shared with me that I didn't know and wasn't aware of, and Scott, is that we have been giving consistent, what do you call them, Brian? Extensions. Consistent extensions on that application. So the next extension is December of this year. And I believe that if they don't do anything by December of this year, then that becomes null, and they'd have to reapply again with new plans and whatever they have submitted to that point. I asked if there was anything that we could do as a council to maybe, help move the situation along, and they both suggested that possibly having a discussion at a future council meeting, that they could send a letter to the owners and say, council is deciding about, the property, maybe, in December this is coming due. Maybe the entitlements aren't going to be renewed when a new application comes along. So I thought that would be helpful if you wanted to have a discussion. And if you will, maybe just put a little bit, whatever kind of pressure we can on them. And they also explained to me that the owner of the property is an elderly gentleman who kind of handed off the property to the daughter and son. And so they were the ones that went out and looked for developers to build the project. And once the entitlements were given on that project, then the father said, well, I want to be hands-on again. You're not going to do this. I'm going to be involved in it. And he's doing nothing and just basically just sitting there with that property and nothing is being done. So I think we kind of should do whatever we can, but staff suggested that we possibly have a discussion at council so that they can send them a letter or
Okay.
contact him to say. So I don't know
But see,
if you're.
my problem with that is that that's a discussion they should be having with all of us. And I ask about that project almost once a month. And I get different answers. Well, it's this or that.
I just asked
I don't know
yesterday,
what the
so.
purpose of putting pressure on them is, because at the bottom, at the end of the day, they still own the property. And if we pull those entitlements, and I can understand why they're extending it, because if we pull the entitlements, they're still gonna own the property, and they're gonna start over. Or they won't start over, because they haven't done anything anyway, so what's the difference? So,
Well, I mean, it's another 5 months that would
Well-
go by with nothing being done.
Vince and I met with the young man and
The sister?
son and, no, it's a son and daughter, I believe.
Okay. Well, his
and,
sister.
Yeah, his sister, yeah. Very, very bright, young, energetic people, and, and this was, I don't know, Vince, 5 years ago, maybe, 6
Yeah, at
years
least.
ago?
So evidently they're not
And it's,
involved anymore.
well, it's what the story is that week. I mean, yes, they are, no, they're not, yes, they are.
I was
mean,
just gonna say, it's
it
constantly
goes back
changes.
and forth, so. I mean, I'm all for lighting a fire in any way we can, but, I think the better solution would be to arrange some meetings with them, or who is making the decisions? Is it the father? Is it the children? Because my understanding is it's held, the title's held in the name of the family trust, okay? Or at least it always has been, unless it's changed recently. And it's the father's trust and the mother's trust. It's not the children's trust. So I think they just kind of took over because the father was probably getting a little older and decided, hey, we'll let my kids take care of it. But you're right, maybe he decided, hey, I want to get involved again. I don't know. But I always think, especially in those types of things, the face-to-face meeting, especially with a large project such as that, one that's going to be a game changer in the city. Letters seem to go back and forth and get lost in the shuffle. I would propose that we even take a step further and ask them to let's have a meeting and sit down and
I think that
discuss where
was,
we're gonna go.
that was their thought, that if council talked about it and it was on the agenda, that they could potentially get the father to come to the meeting, because they haven't been able to arrange a face-to-face meeting with them. I think it's pretty much ignored. Is that correct, Brian, or?
Staff has tried to communicate most recently, and we haven't really got much of a response back in the last year or so.
And so when that entitlement runs out in December, they would have to just go back again to the drawing board?
Without this being on the agenda and going too far into a discussion about it, if I was to speak generally, if the conditions that they have there and there is no movement on a project after a certain period of time, and a project is not, and building permits are not issued after a certain time, yes, there is the risk of entitlements lapsing. But again, there are different conditions that can happen. I don't want to go into too much detail related to that, but yes, there is always a risk when there's not movement that entitlements have the risk of lapsing.
How long are entitlements given for? Does it vary by project?
There are some statutory regulations related to entitlements, but it is also, and it depends on how the project is developed. This project was developed under some specific circumstances related to the provisions in the downtown specific plan that granted them certain abilities to build, and the heights and the densities that allowed them to build on that, which is a little bit different than what a development agreement would look like. So it would take it's a little bit more of a nuanced discussion, which, I mean, we're happy to go back to if at some point as a broader update. I mean, just giving general updates before to council members as they've individually asked.
I'm just wondering if you think it would be worthwhile to discuss it publicly, so
I do.
Happy to bring back to the council an update on where things are at, and again, being sensitive to the individual property owners as well, and not putting any type of future decision making on the line in terms of that. But we can definitely give an update.
and that's
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
So maybe some good news. I heard on the news there were 2 big illegal fireworks busts this afternoon.
Temple City.
No, one in Pomona and one in Riverside. So maybe that was a
Maybe that's why.
product intended to come here. I don't know, but at least it puts less on the street. So that's something. So hopefully it'll be good. And you know, it kind of lost in the shuffle, Kathy. We're still having Campalooza, right? Is it sold out? Yes. Okay, because we haven't kind of mentioned that. Or kind of poor stepchild now with all this new stuff going on, but. Was it? I know, but it was on the little calendar. Wasn't on the big calendar. Yeah. So when is that? Do you know, Vimmer? July 18th and 19th. So that's a couple weeks. So good. All right. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. I just wanted to thank Eliana for the presentation. I think it was very informative. And I'm glad we're keeping up on our social media because I do believe it's going to just get more popular. So thank you for that. And of course, Kathy, how many times? Told you 10 times today how great we are, how great we are, how much, I know, it is
Isn't
Kathy's
there a
day.
song
It is
called
Kathy's
that?
day.
How great they are.
I'm really excited about your bench. That is really cool. We're gonna miss you. Please keep your phone on. I just wanted to thank you, just my experience with you is really working with you when I did the Kamoy Festival. Your office was right next to mine, and I was very lost. There was never any notes taken for Camellia Festival, so we kind of just did what we could, and you were always there, your door was always open, and I could always bounce things off of you. So, again, thank you very much. And Happy New Year. Happy
New Year.
4th of July. Okay, additional public comments. Jerry? Anyone? No? Okay, I would like to adjourn tonight's meeting, and everybody have a great 4th.